Hello, Mark. It's good to see you. Thank you for coming on. It's your podcast, but
Yeah.
thanks for making the time today.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me, Kevin, and a couple of irons in the fire I wanted to chat about.
Absolutely. People can check out. I'm sure they know this, but if they're watching on YouTube, your YouTube channel in terms of these podcast episodes, but basically YouTube videos. And then I pull the audio uh, in that process and post it as a podcast as well, so people can go to um, my website, frankly, kevinthetechguy.ca. You can check out the podcast page there. That's where I'm hosting it. And then you can also go to markcharrington.ca with kind of a link tree of everything that you do online, so people can check those out. So I'll let you. The floor is yours, Mark. Which story do you want to tackle first?
I wouldn't mind chatting about these compassionate intervention centers. And what a name, eh? Yeah. So I was 660 News in Calgary asked me to interviewed me in regards to it, and they sent me the press release that the government sent out, and you can tell the PR people had really been working on this one because what they're proposing is $180 million over 3 years to establish and build two compassionate intervention centers. And that's just soft words for jail. And, um, and what's very unique about this, of course, is that it's confining adults, probably most against their will, and not for criminal behavior, not even for victimizing other people, but potentially because they're perceived to have an addictions or harmful substance issue that's affecting their quality of life, and they're at risk of whoever reports them um, being in harm's way. This in itself is a real wolf in sheep's clothing, in my opinion, because first of all, let's look at the landscape that we have right now. We have a number of residential treatment programs. I think there's about 50 or 60 in the province. Some are on First Nations, some are off. Some are private. Most are have some sort of public funding. And we have some that are completely public, run by Recovery Alberta now, but used to be AHS, including programs like the one in Medicine Hat or Henwood or Grand Prairie. So we have lots of treatment centers, and but we still have this deep social trauma or deep social chaos going on. And the government thinks that the way to solve this, to look at people that are involved in harmful substance usage and addicted to, particularly fentanyl, is to build these jails. Well, the first problem I have with this is that if we actually had the bed spaces that we need and reduce demand, so it doesn't matter what treatment center, it doesn't matter where it is in Alberta, you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks minimum before you'll be accepted. That's after your application. So there's these huge waiting lists around the corner uh, for people to access residential treatment. And if we took this $180 million over 3 years and invested in our established infrastructure and maintained a voluntary program, I think we wouldn't be sitting in this fentanyl crisis. The issue with drug use, and at least this is my perspective, is that it's an underlying symptom. It's a symptom to an underlying cause, and that is social trauma, social disorder, social chaos, what you want to call it. Many persons are homeless. Many persons are entrenched in the criminal justice system because of addictions. Many people can't get the voluntary help that they need when they need it, when they want to when they're in an action phase and want to stay sober. So this whole idea of building jails so that your mother or your brother or your wife or your children or your son or your daughter who's afflicted by this terrible disease, you can somehow get an order from a justice or a judge and be confined against, and then be confined against your will. I think it smacks straight in the face of our charter. I'm not a lawyer, and I think it really pushes the line of when and how you confine people in jails. So this is a precedent in the sense that we're not locking people up strictly for criminal behavior. Now, when you look at the mental health, like Alberta Hospital, Panoka, whatever, you're looking at, there's strict criteria for people that are admitted into and detained in the healthcare system under mental health. And that is that they're harm to themselves and others. So they have to exhibit behavior that's putting somebody in imminent risk, like imminent. So, and that in itself is rather intrusive. But this whole idea of developing jails for people that are afflicted by harmful substances I think, is taking it way over the top. And that's my initial feeling. And now they haven't written the legislation. They haven't put shovels in the dirt yet. So I don't know exactly what it's going to end up looking at. But my other, go ahead.
Sorry, let me jump in just here for a second. So first thought is, through my experience of the years on this earth myself, forcing people to do anything doesn't usually end well. It's not usually as effective as some people seem to think. People have to be willing. People have to be ready. They have to be. On that note, I will actually quote a politician, which I never look forward to doing, but here we go. We cannot and will not stand by and let addiction destroy our families and communities. That's from Dan Williams, the Minister of Health and Addiction.
Yeah, he'll be running these jails. And this is the other issue, is that they're not using best practices or the science. And you're right, Kevin. That's what the research shows, is that people that aren't ready for change won't commit to change. And having this sort of forced treatment model on them isn't going to do nothing but dry them out for perhaps 10 days or 2 weeks, or well, God knows how long they want to keep you detained. And the only other countries that have this sort of system are autocratic societies such as Russia, Turkey, Afghanistan. Even these places where democracy is well and thriving do not have these kind of centers. So that's another red belt. But the other main thing is we're assuming that it's just immediate family could trigger these confinements, right? Your mom or your dad or your brother, or your sister, or your children. It could very well be that a peace officer, a police officer, a bylaw officer, anybody can be given this authority to confine these people. And so it might be used as a sort of a scrubbing tool to clean our streets and society of people that Danielle Smith and the UCP find troublesome. And this is a big issue with me, is that, that we're possibly opening up these jails to incarcerate people because of their issues with addiction. And you look the writings on the wall. They've already committed to changing the Edmonton Young Offenders Center. We're renovating it. So they're which is a young offender center where there's convicted murderers and drug dealers. And under the same roof, they're putting children and youth, again, with nothing more than harmful substance usage, into these same centers. So they're totally throwing the Youth Criminal Justice Act, and they're implementing the Alberta's version of the Juvenile Delinquents Act. I mean, just the ideas of what they're thinking and the policies they're putting in, and the huge amounts of money they're throwing at this, when in fact we're so negligent in dealing with these addictions through voluntary programs whether it be Henwood, Bonnyville, or Pound Makers, or Girard, or wherever in the province. There's these huge waiting lists because we don't have enough bed space for people that want residential treatment, that want these intervention. So we're ignoring those, and we're developing new centers to put people in that aren't ready. So it's just ass backwards. And the final link in this whole chain is what after. Okay. Again, we don't have the housing, we don't have the supportive living programs, we don't have the outreach to deal with people in a way that's conducive to treatment. So we're going to be throwing these people in these jails for 2 weeks or 90 days or however long, and then dumping them back out on the street, only to, it's going to be cyclical. It's just a disaster. It's a disaster waiting to happen, in my opinion.
In your posts, you've talked about, as well as in your posts on social media, you've talked about the closure of the Grand Prairie, I don't want to say facility, I hate that word, but
No, it's drop in. They use drop in. The housing program for homeless youth.
And the very sudden nature of that.
Yeah.
He was closing at the end of, what was it, April, I think it is.
Yeah.
But the lack of the funding, it just being, the rugs being pulled out from under them after how many decades, it sounds like, that they've been in operation. And the same thing sounds like it's happening in Ponoka.
If you're suffering from a brain injury and trauma, mental health, you've just pulled, you've again pulled a vital supportive living environment away, a resource away from population. And,
and now they're scared shitless. I imagine the people who are going to those particular programs in Ponoka, in Grand Prairie, wherever, that these programs are pulled, where now they're saying, oh my God, they're going to put me in jail instead.
When we start utilizing these sorts of actions and looking at confinement as the only way to the only way as an intervention model, you're going to have all these systemic issues that are going to follow. Now, I know that there's going to be a pile of lawyers that are going to chew at this, whatever Danielle Smith comes up with.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah. And I'm again, it would be great to maybe talk to a lawyer, and of course this will be found unconstitutional. But you got a government that are a bunch of ideological zealots. And so I could just see what's going to happen with Danielle Smith. She's going to use the notwithstanding clause. She's going to say, the hell with your human rights. She's going to use the one notwithstanding clause. And that's her right, I guess, because that's what's enshrined in her constitution. But, for somebody that was banging the drum about personal freedoms and, stop the jab and, quit discriminating, and she one time compared people that refused to get vaccinated and being isolated from going to work, and that is the same sort of scope as people that have suffered through a Holocaust or genocide. For somebody that rails on that, I mean, she sounds like a hypocrite going this way. So it'll be interesting, Kevin, and I hope people speak up. And I certainly sympathize and understand. And I don't know of any family, including my own, where addictions hasn't been a major trauma. And I'm not in any way questioning people's love and people's determination to save their loved ones. But in my opinion, this is not the way to do it. And I think this premier, bottom line, would have more grounds to talk about doing this if we actually didn't have 6 to 8 week, and that's minimum, waiting lists for our voluntary programs, which are already oversubscribed and underfunded.
I'm quoting from your post on social media here. These funds should be redirected into existing programs for expansion and to expand those particular programs and the care afterwards. Not some weird experiment that runs in conflict. Of course, people can read your Substack posts on the Ponoka Rising Sun Clubhouse, as well as the what's the one called in Grand Prairie?
Right.
Because it's on the Substack. Forgive
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was very sudden. They didn't see it coming. Now they're having to try to make up the difference through fundraising and other efforts because the government of Alberta funded them 90% for so many years, and now just won't.
And unfortunately for Grand Prairies, they've got a sock puppet for an MLA who talks about what an amazing riding, but certainly kept his mouth shut on this
A
one.
bit of an intense topic, but we got to have conversations like this to encourage change, to push for change. So contact your MLA or give them a call. We would encourage that. Send emails even, and let's start pressuring the government to do the right thing. So thank you everybody for watching and listening. Again, you can check out the podcast at markcherrington.ca. That'll take you to kind of a link tree where all of the links are for what Mark does and what he shares online. And
Thanks, everybody.
we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah.